Good morning, everyone, and thank you guys so much for joining. We have a lot going on this morning. The S&P 500 is tanking off again. We saw a lot of selling pressure come in overnight on a ton of different stocks. Most stocks are definitely gapping down this morning. We can see the SPY is back below 430 after such an amazing recovery yesterday. One of the few stocks that are really popping to the upside with momentum is Palantir. They had a huge contract in after hours yesterday. It was like an $823 million deal with the Army. So that's huge. And Palantir finally had like a nice pop from that because they've been struggling so much. So it was great to see that. And Tom, what's on your watch list heading into today?
Yeah, it's awesome to see Palantir, like you said, kind of getting these awesome deals and flying up. But I'm really keeping my eyes on Tesla today. I was really watching them yesterday as they were approaching that $800 resistance kind of at market open. And today I'm really going to have my eyes on to see if they can kind of hold this support down here right around 764. Looks like we've hit around this quite a few times in the past, ended up going right back up off of these levels. And it looks like we are kind of bouncing up off of that lower level so far this morning. So I will be looking for a little bit of a continuation with this one back to the upside. But if it does end up falling and breaking that support, then we might have to look at it to the downside, especially with how we've been hitting off of that $800 resistance lately. I feel like Tesla could have some pretty big moves either way. Even if it ends up going down, I feel like it could end up having a pretty big move to the downside.
Alrighty, so welcome George, Jamie, Neighbor Jay, Rick, Keisha, James, Gabriel, Power, and Iranical to the stream. You guys know the drill. Let us know what stocks you're watching, and we'll definitely take a look at them. So yeah, we have George saying he was the first like this morning. So awesome. Love to hear that. You guys know liking the stream helps us out so much. So if you do like the stream, if you hit that like button, Tom and I would greatly appreciate it. But to start off the day, there is one green stock on my watch list, which is Palantir. A lot of other stocks are selling off pretty hard. We even have Zoom tanking off, Tom. I don't know if you saw Zoom, but it's down over 2% on the day, or it was, and we're actually trying to bounce off of the 250 support.
Yeah, I see that. We're actually right at that 250 level, and it looks like we pretty much touched that right on the head this morning. Yeah, 250 exactly, and now we're getting a nice move back. This could actually be a pretty good play at open if this momentum continues because, like you said, that's a pretty decent support there. And, man, I've been feeling bad for Zoom lately, Mike. They've been really getting killed. They've been falling down through support, and, even though they are getting a little bit of a pop back up here at open, I wouldn't be too surprised if they ended up falling back down, but $250 has definitely been a pretty big support in the past. So I hope that this one ends up holding up because, man, they've just been getting killed in the short term. And it looks like right now that they're really at that key level. So hopefully they get a nice bounce back up.
Alrighty, so good stuff there. We have Neighbor Jay saying, let's go Palantir. So Palantir is running with a bunch of momentum, but they are fading off a little bit at open. I mean, they're still up 7% on the day, but Tom, I think even if it doesn't run up let's say 15% today, I feel like today's going to be crucial for, I guess you can say, reversing the horrible downtrend that it's been in, because we all know Palantir is obviously a stock that has a lot of growth potential, and it gets in these weird trends where it'll basically just go straight up for a month or two, and then it could also go straight down for a month or two. So I'm hoping that this catalyst can kind of reverse that trend to the upside.
Yeah, me too. And it's a really big catalyst. Like you said, $800 million with the military, which is an awesome thing to hear. They're pretty good at paying their bills. It's not like they're not going to pay you or anything. So I would really think that Palantir could end up doing well. And like you said, I would think that would drive some of these bigger investors to kind of get into Palantir, especially at these lower levels. Like whenever we look at the daily chart, it's at such a great opportunity right now for shares and just for a longer term play. So it seems pretty good. And I really hope that it gets them to pop back up as well, Mike. And it looks like we're really trying to hold that $24.50 support this morning. It's holding up pretty well so far. And honestly, we're moving up pretty decently off of that. So I would think if Palantir could hold its ground, it would show a lot of strength today, especially if we could hold 24.50 or maybe $24. As long as we stay above there, I think we're okay.
Gotcha. So, and then we have Power mentioning GM, and I believe GM's Investor Day is today. I could be wrong. I'll double check that really quickly, but they're actually turning up pretty well.
Yeah, they actually are, considering that lots of stocks are jumping to the downside. They're actually up above their closing price of yesterday, up 0.6%, and looks pretty good, Mike. And if they do have that event coming up, I would not put it past them to maybe get a little bit of a pop back up later on. This is honestly a lot of strength today, considering what was happening to most stocks this morning. So I like it. And like you said, if they have that day coming, that could be awesome, because I know that they've been unveiling lots of electric vehicles and just lots of different innovation lately. So hopefully they have some cool stuff to show off.
Yeah, I'm looking into it right now. It looks like it is today, but I cannot confirm that. So either way, they're running up. They have good momentum, and I actually like this setup. So definitely keep it on your radar. And then we have Brian saying, "Good morning, guys, and enough blessings. And what do you think about charge points?" So CHPT, what do you think, Tom?
I honestly really liked it for those couple months there, but we fell through that bad support, and unfortunately, we're kind of coming down and retesting the next support down here around 1750. I think it looks decent. It's just unfortunately we fell through that major support lately, which is not good. So I would not be surprised if it kept going down in the short term, but I think for the longer term setup, it's pretty good right now. And at least today, it's starting to look like it might be turning back to the upside. So if you do see a solid move back up, I think calls could be a good way to go. But personally, I think I would only grab shares down here at these levels. With the way the shares are and the way the share price is at the lowest level for the past over the past year, just about, I think that shows that we're at a pretty good spot for the long term. And in the short term, we've really been getting hurt with this one. So I'd be a little careful with it.
All right. So, Tom, we have, let's see. So, yeah, we have Joe mentioning Palantir short. So I wouldn't short that, but what are your thoughts on like a potential short play with Palantir?
Yeah, personally, I mean, I wouldn't either. Now, maybe looking at the huge rise in after hours yesterday, if you could have shorted it maybe somewhere up here at the top yesterday, it could have been decent, because the chances of a pullback after a huge run like that are pretty big. But to be honest, the way it pulled back this morning is kind of, we pulled right back down to this support at like 2450. And so far, that's holding up pretty well. Personally, I don't like a short position on it. I'm more of bias to the upside with Palantir right now, especially with that big deal coming out. I feel like that they're just down this morning because the overall market gap down, and it really just drove almost every single stock down, not just Palantir. So for me, I would say I'm playing it more to the upside. But, if it does end up breaking these supports and going down, I think it might work for you. But I'll be honest, I would mainly look at it to the upside, and I would even look at shares or just cash secured puts on it.
All right, so Tom, I don't know if you saw this or not yet, but the SPY is having a pretty solid opening. We gapped down pretty strong, and SPY is coming right back up. Like, look at this. It's a very strong opening, and some of these stocks are going red to green. Like, we have PENN up 1%, Square, Tesla, Redfin. It's like the market's so choppy lately. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's so up and down. It's very hard to trade. I know AMD came back down to that $100 support again, and then now it's flying up off that support for like the third or fourth time over the past 5 trading days. It's been so up and down. It's just really hard to trade lately. And looking at the SPY, I mean, it bounced right off that like 428, you could say 427 support. So it's honestly moving decently off these technicals. And I know SPY is just kind of trading between a range right now. So maybe that'll be the way to go, is just to kind of buy as it gets to the lower and upper levels of these ranges and just kind of play it like that for the next couple of days. Because it seems like it's definitely been in a little bit of a range. It's kind of been stuck almost. And, I feel like all this weird stuff going on in Congress is really like kind of taking a toll on the market, because I feel like the market's trying to pick a direction. But, we have rising rates going on. We have Yellen coming out saying a possible recession is coming up with a default. And, we have these budget bills getting passed, and just there's all these different catalysts right now that I think are weighing on the market. And the market's just kind of, I feel like, waiting it out and just waiting to see what happens.
All right, let's take a look at like Baba really quickly. So Baba's having a pretty solid day. Obviously, it had that bad gap down, but these buyers are really jumping back into this one. And I was looking at one of the China ETFs, Queb, and I know that most stocks gap down today, but it's great to see like this type of upwards movement come right back in.
Yeah, it really is. And, even though they gapped down, they didn't really break support or anything, which was, I think, a pretty good thing to see. And like you said, they're all coming right back up and it's showing a lot of strength. And, I like how you pointed out Baba, but, JD's having some strength come back in. I know NIO is a pretty big China stock and they're looking decent this morning too. And overall, it's just these China stocks might start recovering pretty well over the next couple of weeks, guys. I think there's some pretty good opportunities with Baba, Queb, and a lot of these other stocks, especially down here at support. Like, man, Baba's like right on this key 140 support level. And it seems like we're getting two nice green bounces off of that. So if we see these levels continue, I mean, guys, definitely be open to these China stocks because they have a long way back to the upside.
Alrighty, so we have Alex saying got into SPY and TQQQ calls with the opening gap down. So love to hear that. I bet it's working pretty well so far. So I'm just hoping for the market to, like I don't really care if it goes up or down too much, but the movement that we've been seeing over like the past 2 weeks, it's like gap down, run up, then like I guess you say gap up, run up, and then just like tank down. Like it's just all over the place. Like there's so much volatility, which sometimes can make it a little bit difficult to trade. And a lot of times when the market's like this, we get a lot of different like whipsaw action. So either way, the market's booming up now, and I hope it continues up.
Yeah, me too. And definitely look for it to maybe come back up and retest a level, maybe like 434 today. Over the past few trading days, as the market bounces off of this lower level at 427, it's always been coming back up to this 434 resistance. So maybe watch out for that. I would not be surprised if we saw it today. And with the way markets bouncing off support, I think it looks like a pretty good play back to the upside today rather than to the downside. But obviously there's still a lot of time left in the market. It could always turn back around, but I would definitely say I'm more biased to the upside right now, Mike. I don't know about you.
I wouldn't say that. Like, of course, I'd love to see the market pop back up. But personally, I just feel like the market has a lot of interesting things going on right now. Like, of course, the whole Evergrande situation, plus the rates rising, plus just profit taking, plus all the political uncertainty. So while I would love to see the market pop back up, I wouldn't say like I'm necessarily like biased right now.
Yeah, I got you. And I'm just looking for it to pop up to 434. So hopefully we get up to that. We're not too far away. And, we hit that yesterday. So hopefully we can get back up there. But I'm with you. There's so much weird stuff going on. All that we need is some very weird, report on CNBC or, like Powell to come out and say something bad about inflation or something. And the next thing we know, we'll be breaking support to the downside. So, that's with all the catalysts, I could definitely see what you're saying.
Alrighty, so looking at everything, we have Gabriel saying SPEC big candles. So I think it's SPCE. So SPCE big candles. Yeah, I mean it's a pretty good opening so far. Of course, it had a little bit of a struggle at like in pre-market and stuff like other stocks did, but it's making a pretty good recovery.
Yeah, it's recovering up decently. And if we keep holding this 22 support, I feel like it could end up moving up pretty well. But, be careful with SPCE. They've been having a lot of downwards movement lately, and they've been breaking some supports to the downside. So be a little careful with them. I like them, but it's just right now, I feel like they could go either way.
All right, and then we have Andrew saying Netflix running. So I know Netflix has so much momentum, especially with all the Squid Game hype. And, I definitely would not short this one right now. And, it's good for like quick in and out day trades, maybe even like a short-term swing with some call debits. The only thing you have to really watch out for is that rise in implied volatility. Basically, this means that the market is accounting for the increased volatility, so you're going to have to pay more for options. But besides that, it's having some pretty good movement.
Yeah, it really is. It's actually recovered up nicely. And, like we've been talking about this morning, almost all stocks kind of gapped down. And, Netflix gapped down the same way a lot of other stocks did. And they are recovering up nicely, which is awesome to see. And if they break out above 640, I could see a pretty good run, kind of like what we saw yesterday whenever they finally broke that high. They had a pretty decent run. They broke the high right around 626. and they ended up running all the way up to 640. Now, I'm not saying we're going to see a run that big again, but if we break above that high of 640, I'd like to see a pretty good run again.
Awesome, awesome. So looking at everything, we still have Palantir leading the way. I would say like my watch list is like 50-50. Half the stocks are in the green, half are in the red. How about you?
Yeah, same thing right now. And I actually have a pretty low price stock up at the top of my watch list right now, which is FUV. They're kind of popping back up. I know this stock is a little bit of a penny stock, but they are bouncing off that $10 support pretty well. So if that $10 support ends up holding up, which it has held up on the daily multiple other times, I think it could end up having a pretty good next couple of days. And it looks like they have been getting beaten down a lot lately. So there is quite a lot of room back to the upside on this one. This one almost reminds me of like a CHPT or Palantir, Mike. And I don't know what they do, but I know that it was a pretty popular stock for a while and people were talking about it nonstop.
All right, so we have Power saying, do you have any info on what is being bought more on the overall market, calls or puts? So the thing here, I'll look at these statistics really quickly. So if we look at the SPY, as of right now, there were 232,000 puts traded and 182,000 calls traded. So definitely more puts, but that does not mean anything. The put to call ratio, or even the call to put ratio, has absolutely no predictive power at all. And another thing to keep in mind is we never know if the puts and calls are being bought, or if they're being closed, if they're being, whatever. We don't know that information. So put to call ratio and that value, like if more calls are being bought or puts are being bought, has no predictive power at all. So honestly, I wouldn't use it. And another thing to keep in mind is, let's say right now there's 500,000 puts being traded and 100,000 calls being traded. That doesn't necessarily mean to short the market or to buy the market, because, maybe hedge funds are buying the puts to protect their multi-billion-dollar SPY portfolio, right? And they might be buying those puts hoping that the stock market rises, because if the stock market rises, they'll make more off their overall portfolio, then that would outweigh the losses on the puts. And at the same time, you can make the argument that the hedge funds can also be selling to open the puts as like a cash secured put. So there's just a lot of things to keep in mind when analyzing that type of data, but great question overall. And looking at everything, Tom, it looks like Disney is struggling a little bit. I know they had an awesome day on, I believe, Friday, but they're slowly starting to fade down. I'm still a huge fan of them, like especially over the next couple months. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, right now you're right. It's not looking too good in the short term. And I would not be surprised if we ended up falling below maybe like 173 today and we kept going down. This is just not a good move right now. I had a bad gap to the downside. And, that's not too bad because lots of other stocks did that today, but they're not getting that recovery back up that a lot of these other stocks are getting. And it's not good to see right now. And I like Disney for the longer term too, but over the next few days, I would not be surprised if maybe we saw them fall down towards like 171 or maybe 170. And that's not too far away. It's only a couple of points. So it's not like the stock will be crashing and burning or anything like that. It's just a little bit of a downward movement here. And it looks like on the daily, they've just been having a lot of trouble breaking out lately. But I feel like eventually all that they need is one good report or maybe some good Disney Plus numbers, and they'll be right back up there. But, for right now in the short term, it's not looking too good. Like you said, they're just kind of fading off to the downside, but I don't expect them to go down too low. Like I said, maybe they'll hold that 171 or 170 support.
Gotcha. So with everything going on, like what are like some of your favorite plays in the market right now, whether it be for short-term plays or maybe long-term dip buys? What are you seeing?
I'm honestly looking a lot. I know I talked about this in last night's video as being my favorite stock right now, but I'm really looking at DraftKings. I mean, we have another bounce off that 48, I should say the 48.50 support, just like yesterday in pre-market. And then we have a nice move right back to the upside. I would not be surprised to see DraftKings actually break up above $50 and then get a decent move up. Finally, we've been having lots of problems breaking out above $50 or $50.50. And it just looks like such a decent stock right now for two different types of plays. To me, it looks good for a short-term play to the upside, and it also looks good for a longer-term play to me as we really dip down here. We just hit that $65 resistance a few weeks ago, and now we're sitting right around $50 a share. So that's $15 off that high of 65. So I could see a pretty good recovery, and I like it for the longer term and the short term at these levels.
Good stuff. Yeah, DraftKings is one of my favorites, so that's good to see.
You can't go wrong with that one, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like DraftKings as like a dip buy right now, but I am also a fan of Corsair. I feel like that one has been at like a pretty low level for some time now, and it just doesn't really have any momentum, but I feel like they have a ton of growth potential over the next couple years. So this is definitely one of my favorites as well. Redfin isn't looking too bad, and Palantir too. Both of those are at some pretty good levels.
Yeah, and I really like Redfin as far as like a good like a mortgage stock or a stock to kind of get you into that housing market sector. I know it's not like a it's not as good as like a like the stock like I don't know what you'd even call that, like a REIT. It's not as good as that, but it's a good stock for the housing market overall. And I feel like if the housing market keeps booming, Redfin should do pretty good, I think, over the next couple years.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of growth potential. They are growing a lot, and they have a lot of market share to gain. Like, obviously, like they're not as big as Zillow, at least right now, but I feel like they have potential to rise a lot, and they are growing at a pretty nice pace, which is awesome to see. So I do like it. And looking at everything else right now, how's the market doing? Because I know that we hit a pretty strong open, but we're still down like a little over 0.5% on the day.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not really. The SPY is still down from yesterday, but it's almost like we're just flat still. We haven't had too much movement to the downside or the upside ever since the market actually opened here. If we go to the 1 minute chart, we had a nice move up from 429 up to 431. Now we're just coming back down to 430 right now, and it's just looking like we're having a lot of problems breaking some of these resistances back to the upside, and it's just not looking good right now for the market. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the market maybe keep coming back down and retesting some of these lower levels like 429 maybe over the next few minutes or something. But it's not looking good right now. We had that bad move in pre-market. At open, that recovery was looking great, but like I said, we're giving up all those gains right now, and it's kind of coming back down to reality. But it could keep running up later on, kind of like what we saw yesterday at open. We saw a pretty big move up initially. Then we saw for about 10 to 20 minutes some downwards movement, and then we had the market really fly back up after that. So we still have the chance of the market going up later on today, but for right now, it looks like it's just really flat. And a lot of people, I think, were looking at the market today, Mike, and they were looking for a nice recovery up, especially with the way it looked at open. But now we're just seeing it kind of turn back over, and who knows, we might end up being back in the red, especially with my watch list being almost all red. Like the only stocks in the green are like Lucid, FUV, Enphase, and Tesla. Besides that, every other stock on my watch list is red.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's some on mine that are green, like you mentioned, Enphase, but we also have Square popping off. Roku is up 3.4%, so that's pretty big. And then, of course, Palantir and like Lemonade, and then PENN. So there are some stocks that are trending up, but what's important to know is like PENN, like yes, it's technically up, but look at that chart. Like it's barely up, and it could just as easily go in the red as it could pop up. So it's just not too much momentum, at least right now. But then we have Head saying, I got SPY because QQQ is rising. So yeah, I mean, if it's like a day trade, hopefully it comes up for you. If it's like a dip buy, then there's not really like a wrong time to buy the SPY if you're like planning on holding for the long term. But yeah, hopefully it pops up for you.
Yeah, I hope it does. And one thing to point out is that the QQQ and the SPY, I've noticed over the past few days that now they do generally move the same, but I've noticed a lot of different scenarios over the past couple days where the QQQ would fly up and the SPY would kind of stay low. So be a little careful with that. I know generally they'll move around the same, but just be a little careful. I know that the tech stocks have been really moving like with a mind of their own lately.
Gotcha. So, Tom, we have a pretty big red candle on crude oil. I'm looking at some of these oil stocks like ExxonMobil, Chevron, and some other ones, and they're struggling.
Yeah, it looks like we're finally seeing crude oil come down. And man, I was really waiting for this one, but I could not believe that we kept breaking out on this daily chart with crude. I was really expecting maybe a double or triple top there around $77. But, maybe we'll finally fall back through that and get a big move back to the downside now. And, I'd love to see crude go down because that'll make gas prices even cheaper and stuff. So I'd love to see it. But man, it's crude has really been killing it to the upside. And with the way it broke all-time highs, I don't know, I know it's down right now, but I feel like it could keep running over the next few days, but definitely watch for it. I feel like that 77 support is going to end up being a pretty big level for it over the next couple of days. So really watch it. If we break below 77, I would not be surprised to see a big move back down. And, like we've been talking about a lot, Mike, these crude oil companies have been going up over the past couple of weeks, but, for the longer term with all these EV stocks and stuff coming out, I would not be surprised to see these stocks catch a lot more red in the short term, or I should say in the longer term.
What's going on with poor Palantir, Tom? It was up like, what was it, like 10% or 12% yesterday, and now it's up 4%, less than 4%.
Yeah, we're almost back down to the high of yesterday, which is a pretty weird thing to say. I mean, we almost gave up all of those gains that we had in after hours. It's not looking good. And I feel like the main reason that we're seeing this is just because of the way the overall market's selling off. I feel like a lot of people are getting worried about this. And I have to think that that's the main reason why this is happening, because, the thing is that news seems so good. It's an $800 million deal with the military. I would have definitely thought that we held at least the $25 level this morning, but I mean, I just can't believe that we're pulling back this hard. It's really hard to say, Mike. And I don't know, I feel like Palantir is still a good play for the long term right now, even though it's pulling back hard with the news. I really feel like it's just more of like the overall market affecting it.
Gotcha. Alrighty, so looking at everything, I'm definitely seeing more selling pressure coming in. We have certain like recovery plays actually coming down a little bit, like RCL. You could say some of these airlines like DAL, they're definitely struggling a little bit today. I believe RCL's CEO said that they're expecting to have like their full fleet sailing by the end of next year, or it was something along those lines. And I believe that some of these airlines and recovery plays got downgraded, so that sucks to see. But I know that like the rising like cost of oil obviously makes the like gas more expensive for these companies, so that would also make a little bit of sense.
Man, you're right. Since the cost of my gas tank went up from around $30 for a tank to up to around like $45 to $60, depending on how empty I am. And I couldn't imagine how much some of these cruise companies pay in oil prices or in gas. I mean, that could, imagine that. That's probably like hundreds of thousands of gallons of gasoline that they're going through. So that must be tough for them. And you're right. That's not good to hear that they're talking about having the full fleet at the end of next year. But hey, if RCL ends up going down off that news, we might be able to grab some shares maybe sometime this winter and maybe like load up for next summer whenever they finally get those sailings going back. And, that is good news, though, that they decided that those sailings could be full next year. So that's great to see. And I really hope that this stock can get back up because it's just not looking good in the short term.
All right. So nice job, Joe, with your Palantir short. Awesome job with that one. And then, Tom, we have... hold on, I was just looking on my watch list. Let me go back to this really quickly. Looks like we have Facebook trending lower. It's down 2%, and I know that there's like a bunch of bad things going on with Facebook, and they're definitely breaking down. And like, what are your thoughts on this one? Like, I know that the opening wasn't too good. Even while the market popped up at open, Facebook still struggled. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, personally, I feel like Facebook can go a lot lower than this right now. I'm not saying it's going to happen right away, but I feel like that we could come back down and maybe retest the $300 support over the next couple months. And man, with the way the whistleblowers and everything are coming out, and with the way Congress is really looking at kind of like regulating these social media sites, especially with like the stuff that was going on during these past couple elections, I know that that's stuff that Congress is really looking at pretty hard. And I know that the White House actually just came out and said that self-regulation has not been working. So if they do end up trying to make some regulations and stuff, I could really see Facebook falling off to the downside. And, Congress has been talking about that they want to hear from Mark Zuckerberg and stuff like that over the next couple months. So as we start to hear him coming out and talking to Congress and stuff, I think it'll create some pretty big headlines, and we'll just have to see what happens. But personally, I feel like it could end up going down. Now, in the short term, we might end up pulling a 325 support and going back up or something, but I'm talking about maybe for the next couple months.
All right, so we have Alex saying, good point. SPY and TQQQ lost momentum so fast. Got a bank profit really quickly. Only got 15% and 5% on the calls. Switching to puts now. So, yeah, it's been a very volatile market to trade. You know, we have TQQQ, gap down, run up, fall back down, and who knows what's going to happen next. So, tons of volatility. And I made a video, I want to say 2 weeks ago, and I think the biggest opportunity in the market right now is just buying the dip on some of these beaten down stocks. Like, obviously, I love DraftKings, but you don't, like, if you don't, then you don't have to. But there's other stocks out there, whether you're like Apple or even some lower market cap stocks. Like, there's a lot of stocks at some pretty good levels right now, and I think that's the best move to make. I like Corsair, Redfin, Palantir, RUN, stocks like that.
Yeah, me too. I think those stocks are going to be awesome. And the good thing is that a lot of those stocks that Mike just named, like RUN, Palantir, Redfin, a lot of these stocks are like awesome, like technology stocks. I know Redfin is a, pretty nice like online business. Same thing. RUN is an awesome like solar stock for the long term, or energy stock, I should say, like clean energy. Even that makes it even better. But like a lot of these stocks are awesome for the future too. And I think that they're at great levels for the long term. Like RUN's right at support. DraftKings is at support too. There's just so many opportunities like Mike's talking about. And even like he said with Apple, like if you like Apple for the long term, I mean, we are pretty far off its high right now for a big stock like Apple. And I'll be honest, they're probably set to do pretty decent. I know that new iPhone's going to be coming out over the next like few weeks, and it should end up getting some pretty good numbers, I'd hope.
Yeah, for sure. Even Moderna's tanking off. They're down like 5% on the day. They're really struggling, and I know we've been talking about this one for a while about how it's been pretty overbought. So Moderna and Pfizer are definitely struggling, and I really wouldn't be surprised if we, tested maybe like 290 or 280 with Moderna.
I wouldn't either. And I'll tell you what, if we break below that 300 support, that could be a pretty good opportunity to buy in. Like if you see a good break, maybe today below 300, or, maybe tomorrow, throw that on your watch list. I might go ahead and create an alert on it right now, because that's going to be a pretty good opportunity actually whenever we move below that. So it'll be a pretty cool thing to see. And I think that, like I said, it'll make a pretty good opportunity. And whenever I look at this on the daily chart, there's not really any resistance here. There's a little bit of resistance, or I should say support, right around 300. And we're kind of sitting right on that 100 SMA too. So if we break that, I could see a pretty good move down.
Gotcha. So you're like looking like if we break below the 300 support for like potential like downside play or to the upside?
Potential to the downside, but make it break 300 first. If it doesn't break 300, who knows? It might hit 300 and bounce all the way back up to 325 or 350. So you got to be pretty careful with it, but definitely looking at it to the downside if it breaks below 300. So if it touches 299, I'll probably enter.
Gotcha. So good to see that. Lots of selling pressure coming in across the board. Lots of sellers, lots of stocks in the red by a decent amount. Guys, let us know what you're watching so we can cover them. Let us know what stocks you like for dip buys. Let us know in the live chat. But Tom, like, do you have your eyes on anything specifically, like any movement or any stocks that are catching your eye?
Lucid Motors was actually catching my eye this morning. They had a little bit of a pop back up, and they were in the green for a while. Now we're back up in the green, 0.08%. We just keep going from red to green right now. It's pretty much break even on the day, but they were having a pretty nice move back up at market open, and they had a bad gap down yesterday, and they broke that 2350 support to the downside. But I'm really hoping that they can hold their levels and kind of get back up there. I know that Wall Street Bets was talking about this one, and on the daily chart, it's kind of bouncing on these SMAs and on some key support. So if we do see it hold and it starts to get back up there, I think it can make for a pretty good swing play for the next few days, but definitely make it move. And I am glad to see it kind of going green today while most stocks are red. But, as we're seeing, typical of the stock market this morning, most stocks are up and now they're kind of falling back off, and Lucid's kind of following those. So it is kind of falling down right now, but I do love how it kind of had that nice move at open.
Gotcha. So then we have Sean saying snagged UVXY at open. So love to see that. They're up like 8% on the day. So that's awesome to see. I know it fell off a little bit when the market was rallying up at open, but it's exploding to the upside now as the market is tanking off. So wow, Tom, look at the SPY. Holy crap. Look at the
Yeah,
SPY.
this is insane to see. I mean, man, it looks like we're gonna be falling through that 427 support soon. And when that happens, I mean, man, we're gonna probably see a pretty bad sell-off. And it's gonna be an unfortunate thing to see because man, the SPY's been kind of bouncing on these supports for the past few days. And I'll be honest, Mike, yesterday at the end of the day, it kind of looked like the SPY was gonna maybe have a nice recovery back to the upside, but just like we've been seeing, we had another move back down.
Yeah, this is very crazy to say the least. This is why it's important to like have hedges in place. Like if we look at the SPY, we can see that at open it took like 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 minutes to go from like 429.50 up to like 431, and then it only took like I guess you could say the same amount of time or maybe a little bit more to go from 431 down to 427.50, you can say. Like it goes to show you that the market takes the staircase up and the elevator down, and that's what we're seeing this morning. Like the market has a bunch of selling pressure coming in, and a lot of stocks are selling off big time, Tom. Like even Apple's really tanking off. They're down like 2% on the day, and they're testing a pretty big support right around 138.50. So lots of red either way. Alex grabbed some SPY puts, which is great to see. Some of these SPY puts are really doing pretty awesome today. Like I can see the puts that expire tomorrow are up anywhere from like you could say like 70% to 500% today.
Yeah, that's actually insane, man. Those 500 percenters are going to be, I obviously those sound pretty great, Mike, but I'm sure they were pretty risky to, I'm pretty sure they were risky to buy. You say those were the weeklies?
Yeah, they expire tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, they expire tomorrow. That makes more sense then. I mean, that's pretty crazy, 500%. But yeah, I mean, that's good to see with the way it's been moving here. If you would have gotten into some SPY puts at open, I mean, it would have been a pretty good move. Or if you would have gotten in at the top here just after open, it would have been really the way to go. But man, I mean, guys, let's do a little bit of a poll here in the chat. Let us know in the chat if you guys think the SPY is going to break below 427. We're going to continue to see a sell-off. Definitely let us know if you think that it's going to hit 427 and bounce back up and break up above 436 tomorrow. Let us know that as well. It'll be really interesting to know. And, we really take that information to heart too. Like if the majority of people are generally looking at it to the downside, that generally shows how strong the market is usually. So definitely let us know. It's pretty interesting. And just looking at it personally, to me, it kind of seems like we're going to break this and go to the downside. But we've been seeing bounce after bounce here, and it just keeps going right back to the upside. And look at this on Friday, Mike. We saw actually a very similar move to what we're seeing right now. We saw it bounce off of 427, bounce all the way up in pre-market up to that 431.50 area, and then fall all the way back down to 427. And then you can see on that Friday, it actually recovered all the way back up to 436. So guys, let us know if you think it's going to do this, or let us know if you think it's going to break down below.
All right, we have Vicky saying SPY's not breaking. So she's statistically most likely going to be right. I mean, the market rises a lot more than it falls. And, we can see, especially at that like 427 level, Tom, it bounced off that support quite a few times, like just over the past 5 days,
Yeah, it really has. And I mean, you can see it's like, and it doesn't do it like once a day either. Like it'll bounce here at the end of the day. It'll bounce on it during pre-market, during after hours. Like it really holds up. So I think 427 is going to be a pretty good level. But, if we do break it, definitely look at it to the downside if it does happen. But, either way, I mean, it could be a good buy right there on that support. And if you want to maybe play some calls there, it could be a pretty good way to go. But, there's so many weird catalysts right now. It's just, for me, it's really scary. And I just really think that with the way everything's been going, we might get a move down, but like you said, statistically speaking, we should get the bounce here. But, with it being the sixth touch or whatever, I would think maybe we go down.
All righty. So we have Rahul saying thoughts on Lemonade as a long-term play. So LMND, I like it. They're a unique company, a unique business model with insurance and all that. I like it though. I think it'd be ideal for some short puts, but I do like it. Tom, I don't know if you ever heard of this company or if you have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about their fundamentals. I've definitely heard about them though. You said they're an insurance company.
Yes.
I didn't know that they did insurance, but that's awesome to hear. I know that's a great type of business, and I think it could end up doing pretty well in the longer term. It's just in the short term, obviously, like Mike said, they've been getting beaten down a little bit, but hey, they are kind of coming back to that $60 support, and it's not looking too bad. So if you like them for the long term, I think it's at a pretty good level to buy. And personally, Mike, I think it's at one of the best levels to do cash secured puts or to short some puts right now. I think it's at a great level for that.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that one. And then we have Vicky saying, hit the like button, guys. You know it. So likes really help us out. We greatly appreciate it. It only takes like 2 seconds. So thank you so much to everyone who hit that like button. We have Ironical coming in saying, the market moves like a kangaroo. It kind of does sometimes, especially lately. So it's all over the place. Up, down, up, down, up, down. So definitely very interesting. You know, when the market's selling off, you know, plays like a VXX, UVXY, you can say SPXS, and you know, any inverse or like, yeah, I guess you could say inverse ETF or volatility ETF normally does pretty well. So definitely keep like UVXY, VXX, and SPXS on your watch list.
Yeah, I think those are awesome stocks to trade, especially in the short term. Like if we see the SPY fall down below 427, or if I should say that 427, 426.50, if it falls below that, these stocks like VXX should get a pretty nice pop to the upside. And it looks like they're really trying to break their resistance here right around, like, I would say on VXX, there's a big resistance right around 28.50. And if we break out above that, I mean, the market should the market should be tanking down at that point. So really watch it. I think that there's a pretty good chance for these to pop over the next couple of days. And I'll be honest, like UVXY and SPXS are looking pretty good right now. You know, there's a lot of momentum coming in. They're getting really close to these resistances. And I don't know. I just, like I said earlier, though, I really feel like the SPY is going to finally break this to the downside. But obviously, nobody knows what's going to happen yet. So we'll have to see what happens. But, you know, I feel like those stocks are good. At least if you have a lot of long-term plays, I feel like grabbing some VXX or UVXY is always a good way to go. And, you know, like let's say you have let's just say for example purposes, you have a $50,000 account. That doesn't mean you need to go out and buy 25 grand worth of VXX or anything. You know, a couple grand into those companies can go a long way.
Yep. All right. So we have Sean saying SPY to Elon Musk 420. If debt limit isn't raised, Biden is meeting with JP Morgan and Intel CEOs over the debt limit. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Like, I know that we have a bunch of like uncertainty with, you know, all the stuff that's going through Congress right now. So that's just, I guess you could say like more, I guess you could just say it's like another catalyst to worry about. So hopefully they get something solved with that, because obviously it's a pretty big problem. So hopefully that gets solved. But looking at the market, still lots of selling pressure coming in. And what's interesting is while the market was, I guess you can say, selling off, Palantir is actually trying to come back up, at least just a little bit.
Yeah, it does actually. Palantir is actually trying to get a little bit of a pop back. And I noticed it's kind of been bouncing off this 24 support area. So hopefully that can hold up for it. I know I have a big, I should say I drew a support line on here a while ago at $24, and it has been holding up for the past few days. So I do like the way it bounced off of this. And it does look like this might be the bottom for Palantir today, Mike. And if I had to pick anywhere to buy a call right now, I think this would be one of the better opportunities. And hey, at least if it goes down, you can just get out if it breaks below 24 pretty quick.
All right. Honestly, I think the best way to go with Palantir is not any short-term trading. I think like the best way to go is just, you know, either just shares or leaps and just hold.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be the best way to go. But, you know, we know that everybody likes to play unfortunately, everyone likes to do the risky trades. So
True.
if you're looking at it, definitely look at 24. But, you know, like Mike said, it's definitely going to be safer to grab shares and stuff. If it was me, I'd be selling puts or grabbing shares for sure at these levels.
Alrighty, so it looks like DraftKings is trying to come back up. MU is breaking down. Yeah, one of these chip stocks, MU, is kind of struggling, Tom. Like, I don't know if you've been following this one too much. Like, of course, a lot of people follow, like, AMD and NVIDIA, but MU's kind of selling off.
Yeah, I've been actually following them quite a bit. I personally follow MU, Intel, and Qualcomm probably more than I follow AMD and Nvidia. So I've been really waiting for those stocks to kind of get a turnaround. And I know lately MU's been looking bad. It had a bad day yesterday, and it's honestly just not looking good in the short term. There's a lot of problems with these chip companies lately. They have a lot of production delays going on, lots of production problems in general. It's hard for them to even get materials. So lots of weird stuff going on. And I would think that maybe Micron could keep going down in the short term. We're right around that 70 support. Looks like we are kind of breaking that to the downside. So I would definitely eye this one up more of to the downside in the short term, but I do like them for the next like 3 to 5 years. It's just, I think for like the next 3 months, 3 to 6 months, we could see some pretty bad moves out of these chip stocks. And even AMD and Intel, I could see those stocks even going down. AMD's been having a lot of problems at this $100 support. And if SPY breaks their support, I could see AMD breaking support as well. Same thing with NVIDIA. They've been really holding around this $200 level. And if we see the SPY break support again, I could see NVIDIA end up going down again as well. Like I said, the main reason right now is all these production problems. And keep in mind, these stocks have been killing it for the past 5 years too. Like in some cases, like NVIDIA, I mean, they're up well over like 500%.
Yep. All right, we have George saying Corsair testing support at $25 again. I know it's been stuck in the mud. It's been on a pretty slow and steady downtrend. I'm hoping to see it pop back up, but even if it falls lower, I'll just sell some puts on it. I feel like it has a lot of growth potential for the long term.
Yeah, I do too. I think CRSR has a lot of potential, especially this winter. I know I've been talking about this in the past couple of streams, but I really feel like that as these I should say like Christmas months kind of come into play, I feel like that a lot of these stocks like Corsair and some of these gaming stocks will do a lot better. I know that we saw EA kind of have a downturn recently, and I feel like CRSR can really do well, especially like whenever people start getting those Black Friday deals and really start buying up everything for Christmas.
Gotcha. All right, so Tom, do you have any like major stocks you're looking at? Any last minute plays?
Yeah, I know Sean kind of mentioned earlier that Biden was meeting with JPM or JP Morgan and Intel CEOs and kind of looking at Intel's chart here. I feel like their chart is actually pretty interesting. They're down here at support around 5250. And I've heard a lot lately about Intel trying to do more stuff like with the United States and stuff. So who knows, maybe they can end up getting a good deal or something, but they are right around support. I feel like for the longer term, they're at a good level to buy, kind of like CRSR and some of those other stocks. And, it's not, even if Intel doesn't do as well as AMD, I still feel like they're going to do decent at least over the next few years. So I feel like that, they're definitely not going to go anywhere. They have a pretty good fan base as well. I know I personally like them, but either way, I'm really eyeing up these chip stocks. They're all right at their supports. AMD's at the $100 support. NVIDIA's at the 200 support. And then we're looking at the SPY right at support. So I'm honestly just really looking for a move below or just a bounce back up off of these supports, because I feel like there's honestly a really good opportunity right here. It's just once it picks a direction, we'll be able to finally get a pretty good move one way or the other. It's just you have to figure out which way it's going to go. And if we see it finally break down, then we might just have to buy puts. If we see it fly up through 436, then you might just have to look at calls. But either way, I would just react to the market right now. The SPY's been really flat this morning, so it's been really hard to tell.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching today's stream. We had a great time, and the market's going crazy, so there's a lot of good dip buy opportunities. But again, thank you guys so much for watching, and have an amazing rest of your day.